All statements and opinions expressed by guests of the Adult in the Room podcast are strictly their own and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or opinions of the host, producers, or advertisers. All interviews are presented in their most complete possible form in the interests of free speech. No statements should be interpreted as financial, legal, or medical advice. Listener and viewer discretion are strongly advised.
It's the Adult in the Room podcast with Victoria Taft. That's me.
Seamus Bruner is joining me. Hi, Seamus. How are you?
I am well, Victoria. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks so much for joining the Adult in the Room podcast. And, we're going to be on Seattle Red as well. And, Seamus is a director of research at the Government Accountability Institute. And he is a co-writer with Peter Schweitzer. And do you do the podcast too? Or is that what you do? Or
I contribute
you do everything?
Too.
Well, it's an excellent podcast. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for coming on. We were just talking with Ryan Morrow about some of the tentacles and points of connectivity between the person who took out Charlie Kirk and the far, far left, the revolutionary queer machine or what have you. What can you tell us about that? Because I know you've looked into this.
Yeah, it's a great question. Everybody wants to know what is the connection, if any, to the armed queers of Salt Lake City. And for now, all we know is that the FBI is investigating this armed queers of Salt Lake City and that they scrubbed all their social media the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And so, if they were coordinating or planning in some way, I think they were caught by surprise. So that would lend credence to maybe innocence in the assassination itself. And yet, before the FBI started investigating them, they knew that there was some sort of proximity that led them to take down all of their social media and try to scrub their presence from the internet. So this armed queers group of Salt Lake City, what are they? They train with guns. It's led by a transgender individual named Ermaya Fanayan. This individual has worked with the DNC, the ACLU, a number of NGOs, very suspicious ones. One that the State Department under previous administrations was funding. The Marco Rubio State Department announced yesterday that it would cease all funding to this Utah Global Diplomacy Project, a kind of a World Economic Forum aligned group. So the State Department's not playing around here. The FBI is not playing around here. And these people are extremely radical. I mean, they're talking about overthrow and revolution of the United States. So whether or not they played some role in the Charlie Kirk assassination is beside the point. That these should be shut down. They are going down on these junkets, these trips to Cuba to train with communist, Marxist revolutionaries in Cuba. And this is funded by one of the greatest adversaries of the United States, a man named Neville Roy Singham, a CCP aligned agent, foreign agent, who, by the way, is now under investigation by the Oversight Committee, James Comer, and he sent a letter to Treasury to seize or freeze the assets. So big things are happening, and these groups are right in the middle of it.
You've written this book, Control Oligarchs. I love it. Exposing the billionaire class, their secret deals, and the globalist plot to dominate your life. And the tentacles are everywhere. Is there any way to get rid of these people or to be able to live free without them?
Yeah, well, so it's such an important book because it takes you really all the way back to the beginning of these giant NGOs, and it starts.
Can't wait to read it.
With the Rockefeller Foundation was really the prototype of how to control people's lives using the government in this unholy alliance with the NGO world. They have their Rockefeller Foundation, which is over 100 years old. Moves pretty quickly through to the present day, where Bill Gates learned a lot from them with his Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Both of them are purportedly involved in a lot of medical research, vaccines, etc., but also food research, patenting seeds and coming up with supposed cures for famine. But really what they're doing is taking control of medicine, taking control of the food supply, taking control of farming. That's, there's a whole chapter on the war on farmers and how Bill Gates is right in the middle of that. And then it moves really into the digital space and digital ID, controlling your life that way, central bank digital currencies, stuff that I would have thought a number of years ago were all kind of conspiracy theory land, but it's just totally bearing out every day.
Wow, the Trilateral Commission and all sorts of things. Turns out that, some of those people were rotten to the core and don't like us very much. So are you afraid for your life?
That's a good question. We're down in Florida. It's a concealed carry state, have lots of protection, tall fences and walls around our properties. No, I don't live in fear, but we are prepared.
So, we've just heard from Ryan about the different ways in which one could go about circumventing and or short-circuiting the money to these organizations. And you mentioned the Utah group that was sort of like the Davos group. Are there any other ways that could be used to short-circuit these organizations that you talk about?
Yeah, well, Ryan made a point there about how they can't be allowed enough time to set up a new operation, and the problem is that they do this all the time, and they've been doing it for a long time. Decades for the Soros network, decades even for the Arabella funding network, which a lot of people don't know about but should. And so they're very experienced with setting up a new entity. They've probably, they do have shell companies ready to go at a moment's notice. So going after the entities, I mean, it's critical in going after the funding sources. But really, you need to prosecute people. People need to go to jail. That's the only way that is going to fix any of this. Is people need to have the book thrown at them. So I applaud the Trump administration and what Stephen Miller said recently. I mean, and what Donald Trump said about using RICO. Any legal means necessary to bring justice and bring accountability on these people, because they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They're funding at every level this ecosystem of violence and this ecosystem of radicalism, starting with preschools and trans and drag queen story hours, and then up through the elementary and middle and high schools with Bill Gates is heavily involved in education and things like social emotional learning, which is really DEI rebranded. What that does is it shatters a young child's sense of self and identity, tells them that they can be a furry or a transgender or anything they want to be, and separates and isolates and grooms them away from their family and traditional values. So that's really where Tyler Robinson begins, is in the classrooms. Then they are online in all of these extreme forums, and they're very nihilistic, pretty dark places to hang out. I can't pin it all on George Soros, of course, but then you've got all of the groups. So they find camaraderie in these radical left-wing groups and something to belong to, whether it's Antifa or 100 other organizations like it that want to destroy the United States, Armed Queers of Salt Lake City. And they go on, a funded junket down to Cuba, and they feel like they're part of something that's making a difference. Well, that something is seeking to overthrow the United States of America. That feels, seditious in some ways, treasonous in some ways. There's certainly foreign influence going on with people like Neville Roy Singham, and the CCP is backing these things. And so what the problem was, and Ryan touched on this, and he's absolutely right, it's too big for your average federal investigator to understand. They're usually looking at kind of like a small crime, lone wolf, lone gunman, or very, very small conspiracies. This is a massive one where there's a lot of players. They're extremely well funded. And it's just good to see the Trump administration taking it seriously and talking about things like RICO.
I've always wondered why they hadn't done this before. One of the things I've noticed about Antifa, for example, and I imagine there's some tentacles here as well. Antifa had meetings. Antifa has a cannon. Antifa has a uniform. Antifa has membership. Antifa has songs and chants and oaths. They have all the things that identify them as an organized group, which should hold them to some standards against which we bring punishment.
Yeah, I completely agree. Where conservatives stumble, and it's because they're good people, is that there's a slippery slope, and then what about when
Yeah,
it gets used against us, and
sure.
isn't this hypocrisy to wield power to crush our opponents? The problem is that most people on the right are not burning things down and vandalizing memorials. There wasn't a single George Floyd memorial vandalized in the way that these Charlie Kirk memorials have been vandalized.
Yeah.
And so conservatives also believe strongly in the Constitution and the right to free speech, the right to
Sure.
bear arms. So, I'm not a gun grabber. I wouldn't even advocate for going and seizing the guns of these armed queers of Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they're not breaking the law. There are many laws that are broken. There's a great book, 3 Felonies a Day,
Oh, yes.
that says
We've
the
had
average
Harvey on a couple of
person.
times.
Yeah, Harvey. Yeah, he's great.
He's wonderful.
3 felonies a day. I mean, what maybe not the high school and young people are committing the felonies, but guarantee you George Soros or his accountants or the people who work at the Open Society institutes have committed felonies of some kind, white collar crimes. They need the book thrown at them on whatever it may be, and they need to actually face justice. Now, why doesn't it happen? They're billionaires. They are able to fund the best attorneys, most of them former DOJ, FBI type attorneys. So they run circles around the government, and so it's a big problem. But what it takes is political will, and there hasn't been that before, and it appears that there may be some of that now.
It does make you just stunned to know that nobody else has previously, besides Trump 45, said, you know what, this is wrong, and we ought not engage in this and allow them to do this. The one thing that you talk about, these $1,000 an hour, $2,500 an hour attorneys at these white shoe firms. We started seeing this right after 9/11, and when we started, opening Gitmo, and all of a sudden Eric Holder's law firm is protecting and coming to the aid of terrorists that are doing time at Gitmo, and then he becomes the Attorney General of the United States. It's just like, wow, oh, what? And then all of a sudden, as a result of January 6th, the attorneys that are retained by the President of the United States are disbarred, disrobed, they are ruined. And it's such a, I don't know what to call it. It's wrong. Obviously, we're just sitting there going, well, John Eastman, what did he do? Gave some advice. I mean, that should not be something that's weaponized, for crying out loud. You should be able to not pierce attorney-client privilege. But what did they do to the President of the United States? They did just that. All kinds of things. Just unfair. Just two-tier justice system from the word go. It's just astonishing. So that's where I come from. Now, let me ask you. Do you see these groups? Every intelligence operative I've spoken with has said that January 6th was an information op. That was an operation. Okay. Do you go to the extent where you go, yeah, and here's where the money came from?
Yeah, well, one of the things that always rubbed me a little wrong about January 6th is there was virtually zero Antifa presence. They had been at every single rally in all 50 states, causing chaos, bird dogging, making a spectacle, being violent at every Trump rally. And then the biggest one ever, they decide not to be there. And so, no one's ever proved it. There were photos of buses and people, of them dressed up as MAGA supporters. I mean, you did actually have that one guy that CNN paid to get filmed from inside the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
Name escapes me at the moment.
From Salt Lake City, by the way.
Yeah, from Salt
Lake City.
Point. That's a very interesting point there. In any case, as far as the money, I mean, the one thing with Antifa is it's definitely being paid in cash or like Venmos, and it's not coming from the accounts of the major organizations, which is what makes it so hard. You're right. It does look exactly like an organization, but there's no corporate entity. Excuse me. And so it makes it hard to seize the bank accounts. I mean, these are individuals acting sort of individually, and it's kind of hard to trace. Now, for a citizen, for journalists like myself and yourself, that's hard. For the FBI, it shouldn't be so hard. They have lots of tools to do this, and now there should be the political will all we can do is hope that they actually do their jobs and use all of the powerful tools at their disposal.
Control oligarchs. The subtitle is Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. We'll make sure we get a picture of that in our post-production so that your book is shown far and wide. Really appreciate your time today. Seamus Bruner, thank you so much for coming on the Adult in the Room podcast.
Well, thank you so much.
Take care. I look forward to being able to talk to you again. Appreciate it very much. All right. Man, oh man. That's like back-to-back guests that are saying pretty much similar things, just at different levels. One's international connection, and of course, Seamus is also an international connection, and it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Well, it's time for us to say goodbye.